All right. Hi, guys. So today we are going to keep talking about function notation. We're going to add on the concept of domain and range today. And we're primarily going to be looking at graphs now. Um, so the first thing we're going to start with is this. Actually, I'm going to go back a page here. This pink function. Now you've seen this. This is a quadratic. It's a U shape. I'm just calling it f of x. So I'm giving it a very general name. I'm not even writing out the equation. And I just want to know, what is f of negative 6? Now, typically, if you had an equation, you would plug in a negative 6 into the equation, but I didn't give you the equation. So what I just want you to do is look at the picture. So we're doing what's calling evaluating the function at negative 6. So basically that means go to negative 6 on the x-axis. So go to negative 6 on the x-axis. That's right here. Now, what is the value of y? If your input is negative 6, what is your output? What are we getting out? And that is the value of y. Well, the value of y here, it's not up or down, it's just on the x-axis. So the value of y is 0. So then if I want you to evaluate the function at negative 8, you would go to negative 8 on the x-axis right here, and you would look to see where does that hit the graph. So it hits the graph up here, and where is that? That's at 8. So the y value up here is 8. Evaluating the function at negative 5 means go to negative 5 on the x-axis and then go to where it hits the pink graph. So it hits up here, and the y value right here is a 2. Okay, now for the new part, domain and range. Domain are what your x values are allowed to be, and range are what your y values are allowed to be. So let's start with range, just for the heck of it. So looking at our graph, what y values are we allowed to have? So typically we want to look, here I'm going to write this out, y values. We want to look bottom to top. All right, so starting down here, there are no y values. The first y value we get to is here at 0. Maybe, I wonder if this would help visualize. Let me get a vertical or a horizontal line going here. See if this helps at all. Okay, so maybe. Okay, I apologize. I thought that would maybe work. Okay, sort of, barely. Okay, so looking from bottom to top, okay? So starting down here at the bottom, there's nothing. There's no pink values. There's no part of the pink graph. The first y value we get to is right here, and that's a y value of 0. And then we have all of these y values going up, 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 up. And these arrows indicate that the y values are just going to keep going up. So if I was going to write this range, I would say that I'm allowed to have y values that are greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so let me use this line again, hopefully. So the first y value is at 0, and then anything above 0 is allowed. Anything above 0 is a part of the pink graph. Nothing below 0 is a part of the graph. So that's our range. Okay, let me try to get a vertical line now. Hopefully this will work. Okay, there's a vertical line. Now, when you're talking about domain, you want to look left to right. So we're going to be looking left to right across the graph. I'm going to write that out. Domain are your x values, and you want to look left to right. Okay, so let me get my line. All right, so here's the middle of the graph. And then that x value is -6. This x value is -5, -4, -3. Now, the arrow up at the top, up here, that arrow is indicating that this U shape is going to continue going up, but it's also going to continue going to the right. So it's just going off the graph. Like if I have a x value of -1, the y value is going to be so far up above the graph that it's off the graph. But technically I could have any of these x values and it would just be really high up. Same thing goes with going to the left. See, like an x value of -8 is hitting the pink graph. If I went to an x value of -9, it would be up here more off the graph. If I had an x value of -10, that would be even farther off the graph. So this is going forever to the right and to the left. It's just going to go off the graph. So what I would say for the domain here is all real numbers, meaning x can be anything. Now there's a symbol for all real numbers, and it looks like, imagine an R with an extra line. That's the symbol for all real numbers. If you need to indicate all real numbers like on a Google form, you're not going to be able to find that symbol, so just type in all real numbers and that'll be good enough. Let's look at another one here. Okay, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay, so this is a G function. This is an absolute value graph, and we're going to talk more about those soon, but it looks like a V instead of a U. I did not give you the equation of this. I'm just telling you that it's called the G function, and I want you to evaluate the G function at 2. So that means we're going to go to 2 on the x-axis. 2 is right here on the x-axis, and then look to see where does that hit the graph. That hits the graph up here at 5. The y value is 5. Evaluating the G function at -1, go to -1 on the x-axis, and then look to see where it hits the graph. It hits the graph down here at -4. Evaluating the G function at 3 means go to 3 on the x-axis, and then look where does it hit the graph. It hits the graph right here, and that is a y value of 2. Okay. Now let's talk about range again. Remember, range are your y values that you're allowed to have. So remember, if I take a horizontal line, this is just to help you with visualizing. So do you see how there are y values? There's purple y values all the way up to here, and then after this point there's nothing above. So all of your y values have to be at this mark or below. And the graph continues. Those arrows mean the graph is going to continue down. So this is the highest y value at 5, and then the range is going to be everything below that. So how do I write that? My y values have to be less than or equal to 5. Everything below 5. And it can equal 5 because there's a dot right here at a y value of 5. So 5 and below is our range. For domain, let me get a vertical line. Okay, so for domain, we're looking at our x values. Well, here's the middle of the graph. I can move to the right, and this thing is going to continue moving to the right and down. And then I can keep moving to the left, and there'll be more points over here to the left. They'll just be down and off the graph. So I can plug in any values of x I want. This would also be all real numbers, just like the last problem. And again, the symbol for that looks like an R with two little vertical lines. All right, let's try another one. All right, you might recognize this function. This is a logarithmic function. We have a vertical asymptote, and then it goes up and out like a tree branch. This is going to be our f function. If I want you to evaluate the f function at -3, go to -3 on the x-axis and look to see where does it hit the graph. So it hits the graph right here, and that y value is 1. Here we're going to evaluate the graph at -10. So go to -10 on the x-axis. Now this is a little tricky. Do you see how there's nothing here? At an x value of -10, it doesn't hit the graph at all. So this is undefined. The graph is not even over there. And that's because we have this asymptote, and it looks like our graph has to stay to the right of that. Okay, now thinking of our x values, let me draw that vertical line again. But I gotta make it a different color, so I'll make it purple. Okay, so domain are your x values. So we're looking left to right. Okay, to the left of that asymptote, there's nothing there. There's also nothing there on the asymptote because nothing can actually touch the asymptote. Our x values that we're allowed to have are to the right, and that's going to keep going on forever because there's that arrow there. So there's nothing at this x value of -7 or to the left of it. The only x values we have are to the right of -7. It cannot equal -7, just has to stay to the right of -7. So if I'm going to write out that domain, my x values have to be greater than -7. It cannot equal -7 because that's where the asymptote is. We have to stay to the right of -7. As far as our range goes, I'll get the horizontal line this time. Okay, so range, remember, are your y values. So you're going to be looking from bottom to top. And what y values are you allowed to have? Well, do you see how this arrow is pointing down? So that means that our y values can just go down, down, down forever. And then at this point right here, we have an arrow right here, which you want to look to the right, but also remember these y values are increasing. So as you go to the right, the y's are still going to be going up and up and up. So I meant to just grab this purple line, but it's a little hard for me to do. Okay, there we go. So the y values can go down forever, and they technically can go up forever. It's just that they're going to go off the graph. So our y values, our range, are all real numbers. They can be anything because they can go down forever and they can go up forever. All right, let's try another one. You might recognize this as exponential. Again, we've got an asymptote. This time it's a horizontal asymptote, and our graph is going up pretty quickly. And I'm calling this the g function, and I want you to evaluate it at 0. So that means go to 0 on the x-axis. So here's 0 on the x-axis. Where does it hit the graph? Hits the graph right here, and that y value is 4. And then I want you to evaluate the graph at 1. So go to 1 on the x-axis. Where does that hit the graph? It hits the graph right here, up at 8. All right, so now for domain. So looking left, looking right, left, it's going to keep going on forever. Got that arrow that's helping us to see that. It's also going to keep going on forever to the right. Yes, the arrow looks like it's going up, but as these x values go to the right, the y values are going to go off the graph. But these x values do exist, they're just way up high. So the domain for this is all real numbers because it goes to the left and it goes to the right forever. The range, though, keep in mind the range are your y values. Let me get a little horizontal line. I think that might help. Okay, so we're looking bottom to top. And if we look at starting down here, there's nothing. There's nothing pink down here until you get here. This is the asymptote, and the pink graph cannot actually touch this, but then it's everything above that. So this asymptote is at 3. It cannot equal 3, but it's going to be everything above 3 or greater than 3. So our y values have to be greater than 3. They cannot equal 3 because that's where the asymptote is, and we never touch an asymptote. Okay, here's another one. So this is our f of x function. It's a quadratic. Evaluating at 4 means we're going to go to 4 on the x-axis, look to see where it hits the graph. It hits right here, and that is at a y value of 5. Here we're going to evaluate at 7, so go to 7 on the x-axis, look to see where it hits the graph. It hits up here at 8, so that is our y value of 8. Okay, domain. Domain, do you see how these arrows are going up, but they're also, as you're going up, you're also going to the left, and here as you're going up, you're also going to the right. Like for example, if I took a x value of 9, it would just be off the graph. Or an x value of 10 would be off the graph. But those x values, it is going left and right forever, so our domain is all real numbers. The range, though, looking bottom to top, there's nothing happening down here until you get to this y value of 4, and it can equal 4 because there's a dot there, and then it's everything above 4. Range are always your y values, and we are being greater than or equal to 4. It can equal 4, and then it can be above. And if it helps you to imagine a little horizontal line, make it a different color, and moving that little horizontal, like you could take your pencil, for example, turn it horizontal and glide it up like this. There's nothing until you hit 4, and then it's everything above 4, greater than or equal to 4. I think that might be a good thing, to take your pencil and turn it horizontal, or take your pencil and turn it vertical. Okay, and then here we've got a linear function, a line, and I'm calling it h of x, and I want to evaluate it at -6. So go to -6 on the x-axis, look to see where it hits the line, and it hits at 4. Nope, I need the pen. And then here we're going to evaluate the h function at 0. So that means you're going to go to 0 on the x-axis and see where it hits the line. It hits the line up here at 6. Okay, domain. So domain are your x values. Look left, look right. So maybe take your pencil and turn it vertical. Think of like a little vertical line. Okay, and then sweep your pencil left to right, like this. So do you see how the line is going to go on forever to the left, and the blue line is going to go forever to the right? It's going forever left and right. So that means that the domain will be all real numbers because it can be anything. Okay, now let's look at the range. The range is looking from bottom to top. So turn your pencil horizontal and move it bottom to top and think about what y values would you be allowed to have. Okay, so now imagine this arrow, as it's going to the left, it's also going down. And here, as we're going this arrow to the right, it's also going up. So these y values are going to keep going up, and these y values are going to keep going down. So the y values can be anything. So all real numbers. Again, if you're trying to type into a Google form, I don't believe you're going to be able to find that symbol, so just type in all real numbers. So again, I think it might help you if you, let me just go back to the very first page. I think it'll help you if you write down that domain are your x values, and you're going to look left to right. So again, you're going to take your pencil and turn it vertically. Oops. Get that back to where it was. It's so hard to grab stuff. Okay, so you're going to take your pencil, turn it vertically, and you're going to kind of sweep it across left to right and look to see what x values you're allowed to have. And then when you're talking about range, those are your y values, and you're looking from the bottom to the top. So take your pencil, turn it horizontally, and go bottom to top. And again, on this problem, there was nothing until we hit this y value right here of 0, and then it was everything above that. So it can be 0 and above. So that's why this range was y greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to practice this function notation, and we're going to practice some domain and range. All right, have a good day, guys. Come to office hours if you're getting stuck on anything. Some of you had trouble with yesterday's assignment. You know, when you get your feedback, sometimes I set it so that you can see your immediate scores, and then sometimes I set it where I email you out the scores. If you don't get an immediate feedback, then check your email. But bottom line is, if you're having trouble, if you notice you're not getting very many of them right, please come see me during office hours so we can get this sorted out. All right, have a good day.